In Armenia and in cities around the world, people pause today to remember one of the most horrific chapters of the 20th century. Today marks 100 years since the beginning of the Armenian genocide. 1.5 million Armenian Christians were killed by Ottoman authorities in what is now present-day Turkey. Turkey disputes those numbers and refuses to call it a genocide. More than 20 nations, including Canada, though, do use that language. Turks and Armenians have their own truth and their own narrative over what happened all those years ago, and they've never agreed. And though the event itself is a distant memory, as Jacques Bourbeau reports, it still stirs up deep emotion.
A century after 1.5 million Armenians were massacred by Ottoman Turks, passions still run high. On Parliament Hill, Armenian demonstrators gathered to remind the world of their ordeal.
We've been carrying this burden and this loss for 100 years now, collectively.
That burden intensified, say the Armenians, by Turkey's refusal to acknowledge that in 1915, Ottoman authorities began executing Armenian Christians, forcing many into the desert where they died of starvation, and that this was a genocide. This woman was a young girl during the massacres. Her son says Turkey's denials intensifies their pain.
The wounds are so raw, like it's still bleeding when we see the people that did it will not come forward and say, you know what, yes.
Those denials on display just a few meters away. A smaller group of Turkish Canadians vocally denying there was a genocide.
We had more losses than Armenians. My grandparents had to migrate from eastern Caucasus to western Turkey. They suffered too.
The Armenian protesters are grateful that in 2004, the Canadian government officially recognized the Armenian genocide.
We believe in memory. Canada believes in memory.
But the Turkish demonstrators say by taking sides, the Canadian government has created hatred between Armenians and Turks.
Unfortunately, it spills out as sometimes hatred, name-calling, and so forth among Canadian citizens.
The Armenians say if Turkey would just admit a genocide took place, the process of reconciliation could begin. But for the moment, a tragedy that took place 100 years ago still has the power to divide two communities. Jacques Bourbeau, Global News, Ottawa.